Namaste and welcome to this session where I'm going to discuss about the planets and the ruling planets. How does a planet implement itself in Krishnamurti Padhati is what I'm going to discuss first, and thereafter what are the ruling planets. Now let me share the screen to go further from here. Okay, a planet signifies basically the star lord wherever it is posited. Thereafter, the planet itself wherever it is posited. Then the lordship of the star lord and the lordship of the planet. Okay, so this is how a planet implements its energy in a Placidus chart that is followed in the Krishnamurti Padhati. Corollary to this is as to which all planets will signify a house is the planets in the star of the tenants in that particular house. They are the most powerful to give the effects of that particular house. That is to say that the planets in the star of the tenants are the most powerful significators for that house. Second in precedence would be the planets which are positive in that house. Then it would be the planets in the nakshatra of the house lord. And lastly, it would be the house lord itself. This is a paradigm shift of reading or judging a chart vis-a-vis the traditional Hindu astrology. Now also remember that planets do not change rashis but may change bhavas. The Vedic aspects and conjunctions are all rashi based. Now let me explain the planet significations with this example. Now if you see this Placidus chart, now the 12th Rashi and the 6th Rashi, that is the sign of Virgo and the sign of Pisces have been intercepted. Kindly remember that these signs or Rashis have not vanished. They are very much present in the zodiac. However, the lordship has not been given to the particular planets in this chart. Here, if you notice, the lordship of Mercury has changed. It has the lordship of second and third houses, whereas Mercury does not have the lordship of the sixth house, of the sixth sign here. Okay. Likewise, for Jupiter, it has the lordship of 8th and 9th house, but does not have the lordship of the 12th house because the sign of Pisces has been intercepted. The lordship of the 12th house goes to Mars in this particular case. Okay. For any clarifications for the Placidus system, kindly watch my video on the subject of Placidus charts. Okay. Now, the Saturn is posited in the first house and it is posited in the nakshatra of Rohini in the lordship of Moon. Okay, so what would Saturn signify in a chart, in this chart, would be firstly, wherever its star lord Moon is positive. Now, Moon is posited in the 4th house. If you notice the degrees here, though it is in the sign of Leo, but it is posited in the 4th house. So it would signify 4 first. Thereafter, wherever the planet itself is posited, that is the 1st house. Then the lordship of the star lord, that is of Moon, it has the lordship of the 4th house. And then the lordship of the planet itself, that is 10 and 11 houses. Likewise, if you see Mercury, Mercury is in the star of Mercury itself. So it would signify 7th house very strongly, and thereafter its lordship of 2nd and 3rd houses. Now notice here that it does not have the lordship of the 6th house. The 6th house lordship has gone to Venus here. Okay. Likewise, in the case of Jupiter, Jupiter is in the star of Venus, and it would signify 7, that is where Venus is positive. Firstly, thereafter, the house where it is positive itself, that is 8, and thereafter the lordship of Venus and the lordship of Jupiter. Now, if you notice, the lordship of Jupiter is for the 8th and 9th houses and not the 12th house. Here, the lordship in this particular chart for the 12th house has gone to Mars. Okay. Now, by virtue of 8 repeating here, I have underlined it over here. So now 8 becomes now Jupiter becomes a strong significator of 8, and the others follow. Likewise over here for Saturn also, the significators over here have been shown where 4 has been underlined, because 4 has occurred twice here. I have underlined it, and it becomes a strong significator of the 4th house. Okay, now let me explain it to you with the help of a North Indian chart. Now, if you notice here, the sign of Gemini has repeated here, but the sign of Virgo is not shown over here. Likewise, the sign of Pisces is not shown over here, but the sign of Sagittarius is repeated here. So that implies that Mercury has the lordship of the 2nd and 3rd power, and Jupiter has the lordship of 8th and 9th powers, whereas the sign of Virgo and the sign of Pisces have been intercepted in this chart. Okay, so let us see the significations of Saturn here. Now, Saturn is in the star of Moon. Now, Moon is in the 4th house. Saturn is in the 1st house. The lordship of Moon is 4th house, and the lordship of Saturn is 10th and 11th houses. So Saturn signifies 4, 1, 4, 10, 11 in the precedence given over here. Likewise, for Mercury, Mercury is in the star of Mercury. So it signifies 7th house strongly, and thereafter the lordship of Mercury, that is 2nd and 3rd house. For Jupiter, now Jupiter is in the star of Venus. So it would signify 7th house first, then the 8th house, then the lordship of Venus, that is 1 and 6th house, and then the lordship of Jupiter, that is 8th and 9th house. Notice here again that the 12th Rashi is intercepted, that is the Pisces Rashi is intercepted, the Virgo Rashi is intercepted, and the significations of the planets change. This is a significant difference from how we read the significations of a planet in the traditional astrology. Now let me explain this to you with another example. Now here I have just listed out the way the significations of the planets and the way the significators of the houses are seen. All these 4 points have been listed over here. Now let us have a look-see as to what Saturn signifies here. Now Saturn is in the star of Mercury, that is, it is lying in the nakshatra of Jyeshtha. So Saturn in the star of Mercury would signify Mercury is in the 8th house, Saturn is in the 4th house. The lordship of Mercury here is 2nd and the 11th house, and the lordship of Saturn is 6th and 7th houses. So Saturn would signify 8, 4, 2, 11, 6, 7 in the precedence which has been shown over here. Okay, so let us see now what Mercury signifies. Now, Mercury is in the star of Uttar Bhadrapada, which is lorded by Saturn. So there is a nakshatra parivartan between Saturn and Mercury in this chart. So Mercury would signify, firstly, the house where Saturn is positive, that is fourth house. Then the house where Mercury is positive, that is eighth house. Thereafter, the lordship of Saturn, that is sixth and seventh houses. And then finally, the lordship of Mercury, which is second and 11th houses. Now, look at the difference in the presidents in this case. The planets involved are same, but because of the nakshatra parivartan between Saturn and Mercury, the precedence of the significations has changed. Mercury is the strongest significator of fourth house. Likewise, Saturn is the strongest significator of eighth house. Notice the difference vis-a-vis the traditional astrology. Now, let us see as to which all planets signify the houses here. Now, for the first house, we notice here that Jupiter and Rahu are posited here. However, the planets which are posited in the stars of, in any of the three stars of Jupiter and any of the three stars of Rahu would be stronger than Jupiter and Rahu to give the results of the first house. Now let us see which all are the planets posited in these two planet stars. So we see that Moon is posited in Rahu and Venus and Ketu are posited in the Jupiter stars. So Moon, Venus and Ketu become stronger than Jupiter and Rahu to give the results of first house. So we have Moon, Venus, Ketu followed by Jupiter and Rahu. Thereafter, we have the planet which is posited in the star of the Lord of this house. Now, Sun is the Lord of first house and Rahu is posited in the star of Sun, Uttar Falguni. So, Rahu is stronger than Sun to give the effects of the first house. Strongest would be the planets which are posited in the stars of Jupiter and Rahu. Thereafter, Jupiter and Rahu, by virtue of being posited in the first house. Thereafter, the planet in the star of the Lord of this house, and thereafter, the Lord of this house. This is a distinct change from what one sees and studies traditionally in the Hindu astrology. Let us see a few more houses now. Now let us see the significators of the 10th house. Now 10th house is lorded by Venus. There is no planet which is posited here. So the planets which are posited in any of the three stars of Venus would be stronger than Venus itself to give the effects or signify the 10th house. Now we see that only Jupiter is posited in the star of Venus, that is Purva Falguni. So Jupiter would become the strongest significator of the 10th house, and then it would be Venus. Now, if we see the significators for the third house, we find that Moon is posited over here. However, there is no planet posited in any of the three stars of Moon. So Moon is a free planet here. And by virtue of being posited in the third house, it becomes the strongest significator of third house. Thereafter, the third house having the lordship of Venus and Jupiter being posited in the star of Venus, Jupiter becomes the significator and thereafter Venus itself. So in the order of priority, for third house, it would be Moon, Jupiter and Venus. For the 12th house, we notice that there is no planet positive in this house. The lordship is that of Moon, and Moon has no planet positive in any of its three nakshatras. So moon becomes the strongest significator and the single significator of 12th house. So after having seen these significations of these houses, we find that moon is a significator of first house. Moon is also a significator of third house, and moon is a significator of 12th house. So let us find the significations of the planet moon. Now moon is in the star of Swati, lorded by Rahu. So moon in the star of Rahu signifies first house first, where Rahu is positive. Thereafter, where moon is positive, that is 3. And since Rahu has no lordship, the lordship of moon, which is the 12th house. So moon signifies 1, 3, 12. So corollary to this, as I mentioned previously, if we see the significators of 1, 3, and 12 houses, we would find that moon is the strongest significator in these 3 houses. So this is how we study the planet significations, as also the planets which signify the various houses in Krishnamurti Padhati. Okay. Now for nodes, that is for Rahu and Ketu. Now these represent strongly the planet with which they are co-posited. Thereafter, the planet which is aspecting the node, then the star lord in which they are posited, and finally the house lord if neither conjunct nor aspected. This is how we find the significations of nodes, that is Rahu and Ketu in Krishnamurti Padhati. The nodes, when signifying any planet, become stronger than that planet. Kindly remember this. Now coming over to the ruling planets. So the ruling planets are the planets that rule the moment. At this moment, while I am talking to you, there are planets which rule the moment. Now these planets are, in the order of priority, the ascendant nakshatra lord, the ascendant lord, the moon nakshatra lord, the moon lord, and the day lord. Now these are the 5 planets that we take as the ruling planets. At times, we also go a little further and include the sub-lord of the ascendant and the sub-lord of the moon. So that way, we will have 7 planets as the ruling planets. Remember that whenever nodes are signifying any of the ruling planets, they become stronger than that ruling planet to give the effect. So in place of that particular planet, we will have to select either of the nodes which is representing it. Now, certain points that we have to remember about the ruling planets. Ruling planets at the time of judgment are the same at the time of event or its fructification. Now, this is a very, very strong tool in the hands of an astrologer for timing of the events. The RPs selected as fruitful significators should not be retrograde at the time of the occurrence of the event. The RPs are very, very helpful in judging a chart, in birth time rectification, in finding the various cusps that one is studying, and the various significations that one is studying at the time of the judgment. Now, when we select the fruitful significators out of the list of significators which signify a particular event under study, we use the ruling planets to select only 3 fruitful significators so that we can find the sensitive zone where the event would be occurring. For this, you may like to watch my video on the timing of the events. There are certain exclusions, that is the ruling planets in the sub of detrimental planets, that is detrimental to the particular event or the subject that is being studied, are to be rejected. The retrograde planets which are in the star or sub of a retrograde planet are again to be rejected. However, for the occurrences in the immediate near future, this rule does not stand. Retrograde ruling planets in the star of direct planets only delay the fructification and are not to be rejected. The ruling planets not connected with the relevant houses are to be rejected. Now, these are certain exclusions which help us in selecting the fruitful significators for timing any event. With this, I come to an end of this presentation. Thank you and wish you the very best.